call the meeting to order. If you could do a roll call and then read the Open Public Meetings Act, or not that, the executive session resolution.
Mr. Campion?
Here.
Mr. Diver?
Here.
Mrs. King?
Here.
Mr. American?
Here.
Mr. Schuler?
Here.
Mr. Tompe?
Here.
Mayor O'Brien?
Here.
Resolution number R 2017-42, resolution authorizing an executive session and permitting the governing body to exclude the public from a portion of a public meeting. Whereas the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6, regulates the conduct of meetings by public bodies and authorizes a public body to meet in executive session and exclude the public from discussions of specified subject matters. And whereas this governing body has determined that such discussions are required at this time, now therefore be it resolved by the Borough Council of the Borough of Spring Lake Heights in the County of Monmouth, State of New Jersey as follows. 1, the Mayor and Borough Council will now recess into executive session and the public shall be excluded from discussions which will be limited to the following specific matters: personnel, public works appointment, and administrative office assistant appointment. The matters discussed in executive session shall remain confidential until such time as the need for confidentiality no longer exists. 2, formal action as a result of these discussions, if any, will be conducted in public at this or a subsequent public meeting. 3, it is anticipated at this time that the minutes of this executive session shall be prepared by the Borough Clerk and submitted to the governing body for review and approval no later than the second regularly scheduled meeting of the governing body, following the holding of this executive session or at such time as the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Can I get a motion to go into executive session?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
We're in.
Meeting to order. If you could please rise for a moment of silence for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a roll call?
Mr. Campion?
Here.
Mr. Diver?
Here.
Mrs. King?
Here.
Mr. American?
Here.
Mr. Schuler?
Here.
Mr. Tompe?
Here.
Mayor O'Brien?
Here. I'm going to read the Statement of Compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Pursuant to the requirements of the New Jersey's Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this meeting was included in the annual meeting notice filed with the office of the Borough Clerk, posted on the Borough website and on the bulletin board in the municipal building, published as a legal notice in the Co-Star newspaper and mailed to those requesting notice and providing payment in accordance with borough policy. The agenda has several changes. We have 2 additional resolutions that we're going to add, 48, or, right?
Yes.
48. And also, on the discussion items, I know the environmental committee wants to update us about a couple things, so I'm going to add that as well. So, if I can get an approval of the agenda with those changes.
I'll make the motion. I'll second.
Roll call.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Aye.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tompe?
Yes.
Okay.
We then have the approval of the minutes for the January 30th, 2017 regular session meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Abstain.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tompe?
Yes.
Motion passes.
That's the only minutes, right? We don't have an executive session on.
Correct.
We don't have any well, it's all in the discussion item section. So we have no presentations, no scheduled public hearings, which brings us to our public comment section for agenda items only. So if you would like to speak on anything that's currently on the agenda, including these items that we amended, please step forward, state your name and address, and address the chair.
Nobody else wants to go first. Pat Crippen, 564 Atlantic Avenue. On behalf of the Environmental Commission, I just want to point out, in your packets, you have a correspondence about 496 Prospect Avenue. That property is actually in Spring Lake, and the Environmental Commission has actually reviewed this at their last meeting. This is the one that has this really tiny map, and it's a really complicated site plan to look at. It has a lot of Tidelands claim line, waterfront issues on it. So we have a member who is actually actively following up on that, just so you know. I don't know if anybody had any questions on it, but we are looking into it. They notified us because, in essence, we are the property owners 200 feet away. So it sort of goes into that 200-foot rule. So it had come to us, and since we met before the council, we did discuss it. And we do know there were problems with that property in the past, so I do have somebody following up on it. So if anybody has any questions,
Yeah,
you know.
because if you have a look at the picture, like over half the property is in the Tidelands, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of a strange situation.
And they also had, in the past, been fined for having a illegal bulkhead on the property, and there's been a lot of violations, so,
You don't want it to get dropped.
my member is checking to see were there any conditions that were put on approvals. Because, you know, technically the pond still is tidal, any work that's done there could impact some of the near neighbors on our side. So we're just keeping an eye on it to be able to put whatever input we're allowed to for DEP on that. So if you have any questions, let me know, and we'll get the answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brenda Murphy, 2014, I noticed that there's a discussion item for the community center. Is that still on the table, or is that?
That is still on the agenda. We've got a presentation
Okay.
coming up later, and after this voice of the public.
Okay, I'd once again like to voice some opinion on that I had done back so in September of 2016. And once again, and maybe it'll change this time, I didn't see really much addressing the overall condition of the building and anything about, in 2013, the mayor and council back then voted regarding leadership and energy design and adopted sustainable building designs for certain applications to include major renovations in addition to borough-owned buildings. And yet, there's been a couple of sessions on this and nothing's been addressed that we are actually moving in that direction. And I believe Councilman Giver was on council at that time and was pretty much the forerunner of, having us work with the environmental commission to move forward on sustainable design for our future buildings. So I was curious, once again, are the floors going to be sustainable materials and countertops of ice stone, low volatile organic compounds, and what will the lighting be? And there also appears to be no provisions to enhance any building security. And what provisions are being taken into change for the climate change that, across the country has been experiencing. I realize right now in our political climate, climate change is being battled back and forth. But I think as people who live in New Jersey can attest, Hurricane Sandy suddenly rolled through our doors, and before that Irene and a few others. And what's being done, it was a place of refuge after Hurricane Sandy. And once again, I will ask the same question I asked in September. What's being taken into account or to increase structural stability, retrofits to the roof to minimize wind lift, being able to handle heavy snow loads, energy-efficient impact windows, interlocking roof shingles, water-resistant adhesive ceiling strips, reinforced doors, hurricane shutters? Those are all things that if you're saying you're going to protect, you're looking to use this place to protect the community, then actually redo the building where it actually is going to do that. Because otherwise than that, your price tag of taxpayer dollars to put it into a building and if the tax assessed value is $723,000, it seems like a lot of money not spent when you're not looking at the big picture. And if you're not recognizing how much a lot of our fund is intertwined with very public service you all profess to offer, then I think, once again, I will say it, you need to start over and take these things into account. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
I just wanted to, again, since you're going to be discussing this, just remind you of a few things about, I've been involved with the community center, as Mrs. Hahn has, for over 20 years. I've run, besides our beautification committee, I've been involved in a lot of different events there over the years. I'm very familiar with the building and what happens when we run events in it and what the condition of the building is. And I really think, and I was involved the first time we presented this project to the county in 2004. It's essentially the same plan as it was then. There's some changes and things, but it's basically the same. And first of all, the building definitely needs upgrades. It's been 50 years since that building has been changed in any way. People, not only all people in the community use it, we have many people from outside our community come in. This is what they see of our community, and it's just not in good condition right now. The kitchen's in very bad condition, definitely needs to be completely overhauled. We also make money on this building. It's rented out almost every weekend during the year, not 2 days. We have many organizations and clubs in town that use this building. And plus, we're being given $160,000 that we've worked hard to get the grant. For the beautification, we've worked hard over the years to put money into it, but it's at the point there's nothing more that we can do for it. And I just think for us to turn down this opportunity is really a mistake. And I really think we can do a lot with the building. And I think the community deserves to have a nice community center. And I really hope that you will think of these things and really consider this opportunity. Thank you.
What's your current position in the town?
What's mine? Chair of the planning board.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further hands, can I get a motion
Make
to
that motion.
close the wisdom?
Second.
All in favor, or we'll do a roll call? Let's do a roll call.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tompkins?
Yes.
That brings us to our discussion items. Paul here?
I'm not sure.
No. He's here. Okay, yeah, our discussion items. Our first discussion item is the community center renovations.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just by way of background, the last brief discussion that the council held regarding this was back in December, and at that time it was noted that there would be 2 new members coming onto the council in January, and the matter was deferred until after the new year. The new year has arrived. We got the 2 new members of council that have joined us. What we were going to discuss back then, and we'll discuss, or prepare to discuss this evening, is, and perhaps for the benefit of those 2 new members of council, this project, as Mrs. Eilenberger has indicated, the borough has been successful in obtaining a $156,000 grant from the Community Development Block Grant Program. The application that was submitted envisioned or estimated cost to be between $350,000 to $400,000, with the expectation that it would be a match by the borough. The CDBG program provides a maximum of $200,000 that can be sought, and there's a review committee and a recommendation that ultimately determines whether a project will be funded, and then secondly, what the amount of that funding would be. So in this case, after 3 successive years of submitting application, last year the project was funded in the amount of $156,000, and again, that is a grant. Going back in about June of last year, the first conceptual design was prepared by Mr. Damiano. And I should mention that going back in April of last year, Mr. Damiano was engaged to provide architectural services, everything from preliminary design through construction documents and the bid process. This is actually the third set of revised plans that the council will see. The initial plan provided for the demolition of the rear building, which currently houses the kitchen area, and that there would be an addition across the full width of the rear that would include a revised and renovated kitchen area, the addition of a small conference room, and the addition of a large conference room. Additionally, there would be general renovations to the existing portion of the building, new floors in the main meeting room, and part of the CDBG application was for ADA compliance improvements. So this project would include renovation of the restrooms to make them fully handicap accessible, as well as the addition of ADA access in the rear of the building. There is currently ADA access that leads directly into the main meeting room, but with the originally proposed design, that would have been relocated with the addition of the large conference room. After some concerns when this was first presented, that there was substantial public comment as to the benefit of the kitchen improvements, whether they should or should not include cooking facilities, as well as whether the restrooms were in need of being renovated, as well as there were concerns expressed by members of the public and members of the council as to the requirements and strings that come attached to accepting the CDBG money. It is a federal program. There are a number of anti-discrimination and similar regulations that would be applicable to this facility. Moving forward, in July, the second phase of renovations were completed and presented to the council. Based on the discussions that took place at the first meeting, the small conference room was eliminated. What previously had been a design for table and chair storage in the existing stage area, that was relocated to a smaller storage addition on the rear. The kitchen was redesigned in some fashion. And again, this came back to the council in August of last year. There were additional comments, questions, discussions. And at that point, we were tasked with coming back and...
This is plan number 2.
This is plan number 2 from July of last year. To provide some alternates to reflect the changes that were requested. Essentially, those changes were to develop a plan that would allow for the process to go to bid with somewhat of a piecemeal basis, recognizing that the threshold question as to whether the bathrooms would be renovated and the ADA improvements would be made is really contingent upon whether the council wishes to move forward with utilizing the CDBG grant. Mr. Damiano completed the final plan, which is where we are today. And again, this provides for a small addition, renovating rather than demolishing and reconstructing the kitchen area. And then in the pink, that's the larger conference room that could be bid as an alternate. There were still a number of questions and differences of opinion as to the type of flooring, the extent of the renovations to the restrooms, and those items. In the interim, back in September, we had received a notice of complaint from the State Department of Health concerning a concern or a complaint that had been registered regarding the presence of mold and asbestos. We had the building reviewed. A number of samples and tests were taken. That process was completed in November and was given essentially a clean bill of health based on some cleaning that had been done at that time. That's where we are this evening, which is what direction the council wishes to go in as far as accepting the CDBG money and including those scale renovations when we finally go to bid. I should also mention, I reported at our last meeting that Borough Engineer Joe May had requested from the CDBG program an extension of our contract. The contract that we initially signed with CDBG required that the renovation be completed by March of this year. That has been extended 6 months at this time. And we have received a formal notification of that just today, in fact.
When we came back with these drawings, do you remember when we had the most recent revision, when they were presented?
These had not been presented. These were scheduled to be presented in December, and at that time it was deferred based on the new council members coming in.
I guess I'm confused because I remember a meeting here where Mr. Damiano came and did his presentation and went over all this. I remember we discussed it ad nauseum. In fact, I have the meeting minutes in front of me.
We never actually had a sort of pricing of the different options.
Because we had the discussion and we agreed that it was the bathroom, the floors, and the generator with a core package. And then we wanted to add alternates for the kitchen and the conference room. And the discussion we had on August 12th was that we wanted to go to bid on that and that we were going to arrange bid documents for approval. And I'm curious why 5 months later we're starting over.
Well, as I just explained, in fact, I'll quote from the minutes from the, I'm not sure actually whether it's the September or August, because there are dual dates there. The last statement, Mayor O'Brien announced that nothing will be decided tonight. Mr. Delaney stated that we'll finalize bid specifications and provide some alternates for further discussion as to decide what the priorities are.
Fantastic. Where are the bid specifications?
They have not been completed.
But you just read a line that said that they'd be completed in August.
No, I said that they would be completed. There was no specific date referenced. I will also include that the threshold question here is the extent of the renovations and whether the CDBG money will or will not be utilized.
Which was the discussion we had on August 12th, which was 5 months ago, where we said that we couldn't quantify any decisions. And I remember quipping to Paul when he gave an estimated number, saying that in government world, it ends up being a lot higher than what you estimate. And then we decided, and I remember being in consensus up here, that the only way we would get true numbers is to go out to bid. And since we weren't committed, we were going to bid the core project with 2 add alternates, and we were going to put the specifications together. So I'm curious why we're starting at ground zero again 5 months later, having gone for an extension on the grant, to start over and have this discussion when you just read a line that said you were going to get bid specifications. When did you think we'd want them by? Next year?
Well, I had expected that this discussion would take place in the fall, and then the matter was deferred at that time.
Discussion of what? For us to make the bid specs?
No, the discussion as to what the level of the improvements are to be.
I think I made my point. I don't need to drill any further down. Sorry. I feel like we should have had bid specs, and that's what we should be discussing tonight.
What should the bid specs have been on? I mean, and that, for me, is the open question still, that we could
It's
decide whether
highlighted
we
boxes.
could.
Yellow, pink, blue.
We should have gotten 3 different bids.
The blue was the core, and the pink and the yellow were going to be add alternates that we could review as options. So it would have been your core package, and then an add alternate for each of the 2.
Would you include windows and the floor, the generator, and things that were mentioned by Ms. Murphy?
The notes that were here summarized, and I haven't had a chance to go back and watch the tapes, but I vividly remember this, that we went over the items, and Art was in consensus, and everybody else up here agreed when we broke it into 3 blocks. And we said, now the notes that are in the meeting said, everyone agrees the bathroom upgrades, new floors, and a generator are a must. The kitchen area and the conference room are reasonable. We would like to go to bid on these items and see where the costs come in. That's from August. So I'm frustrated that we come to a consensus. Mr. Delaney read the last line of the minutes of what we clarified that we wanted done, and now we're starting over. And I just heard Mrs. Eilenberger say that we started this how many years ago? And we presented this last time you were on the council, and just, let's do something.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Well, it's obvious where we've been and it's obvious where we are. I think that we can say without a doubt. As one who has never been shy to admit his opinion, tonight will be no exception. I know Eileen has worked on this for years, the beautification committee has worked on this for years, we've all had input. I know from the planning board, we've had a lot of input on this. It's time, it has to be done. The building is in disrepair. The kitchen is antiquated, dilapidated. The lines connecting these appliances are probably, we should not have them inspected because they probably shut the building down. The floor is in total disrepair. It needs a brand new floor. You need new walls, and if you look at the windows, they weren't even installed correctly because they're drafty. And they happen to be good windows. They just were not installed correctly. But if you look at the basic structure, it needs all new electrical. It needs all new plumbing. We did bathrooms, but the bathrooms are not ADA compliant. To accept this money and go forward, they have to be made ADA compliant, I would believe. In fact, if we're going to renovate the building, I know they have to be ADA compliant, so that has to be done. The kitchen, and I'm not going to get into all the particulars of the plan, it's not necessary. We all know the building needs to be done. It's what plan do we pick, and I think from Mr. Damiano's part, tonight I would say we were shown 3 different pictures of what this could look like. Is everybody in agreement on that?
So the plans.
Okay. I'd like an estimate for each plan. That's what we'd like to see. We can fine tune it from there. I don't think, I have some concerns, but I'm not going to get into that. What my basic issue here is, we had an opportunity a couple of years ago to go out and buy a different piece of property. And that would have made a community center that we could have outfitted really well. And that got knocked down. Well, that means this is our community center. It's the 21st century. We've endured a Hurricane Sandy. We know what a 100-year storm looks like, and that's not to guarantee you won't see another one. We need a community center that can function in an emergency situation. This community center, the way it is right now, doesn't function well in an emergency situation. I remember it from Hurricane Sandy. It didn't. We have residents who could be out of power. We have, maybe we need the OEM group to be in this place as the emergency squad and have it situated there, and not just at Borough Hall on the north side of town, but in the community center, have a second group on the south side of town, so that everyone's being addressed. For me, it's a safety issue. It is not just safety, it's a question of an OEM management, it's a question of we need a 21st century building. This is, listen, it's a beautiful building. I like Cape Cod houses. It's a nice, beautiful Cape Cod house. It is not an historical building. It is not a landmark. And we need to make it something that our residents can rely on in the event of an emergency, that they can go to, whether it's charging their cell phones, whether it's coming in for a cup of coffee because there's no electric in the house, or their generator failed. We have no generator in this building. That's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. In 5 years after Hurricane Sandy, we don't have a permanent generator. That's a disgrace. That has to stop. It's just silliness. And I guess my final point is, however we address it, the most important parts to me are, and I agree with Rita Murphy, it needs to be LEED certified. We need proper lighting. We need security. That front door is not very secure. And if you look, to me, it's basically from an emergency standpoint, from a standpoint of where we can have hurricanes again, and we will. We can have a terrible nor'easter that comes through and does enough damage. We need a community center that functions in the 21st century with 21st century needs addressed. That's my opinion. And I make a motion now. Can we please go out and have each one of these estimates, get them estimated, bring it back to us within 2 weeks. We should be able to know estimates within 2 to 3 weeks, I think. Really, people want business today, so that we have a. My other thing that I really have to say that I'm annoyed about. We've been given $160,000 by the county. We spent years trying to get this money, and we're just going to turn around and say, well, let's let that expire and give the money back? That is so foolish, and it's as if someone walked up to you and said, here's a check for $160,000, and you're the poorest man in town, and you're like, nah, I don't need that. Really? You know, when government dollars are so hard to come by, when everybody would give their right arm to get what we just got here, and took us how many applications and years to get, we would all of a sudden say, no, we don't want to do this? We're going to leave this building in its present condition?
For a valuable project we desperately need.
Exactly. And that, for a valuable project we desperately need, and for the safety of our residents in the event of an emergency. It is unthinkable that we would not do this. In some, I don't care what it looks like in the end. I'm not a decorator. You know, that's not my purview. You know, I'll have my opinion like everybody else. But the bottom line is, we have to do this project. This project must be done. And to let this go again and to lose this money, I don't know if we can even get another extension. We may not be able to. I don't want to risk that. I don't want to risk $160,000 of taxes that I paid that I'm going to get back. Why would we do that? It seems foolhardy at best. At best. It's incumbent upon everybody up here. It's our responsibility to do the right thing. The right thing is to renovate this building.
I agree with you.
You want a second on your motion?
Absolutely.
It has to be renovated or closed, one or the other.
So the motion was, just to be clear, did you get the motion? To get the bid specs, right? Basically, that was your motion.
Just repeated to make a
And Chris
motion to
seconded
get
it.
estimates on the 3 different plans.
Right. That's correct. Yeah.
Mr. Campion seconded that.
Can I get a roll call?
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tomby?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Before we close the discussion, though, I will like to mention that if this was such a priority, perhaps we could have discussed it in December when it was on the agenda, as opposed to having it removed from the agenda.
In fairness, Tom, I was of the belief that we were going to be presented bid specs and actually have choices. I didn't realize.
There was an opportunity there to talk about it, and
But
it was.
I would have at the time,
Removed from the
if
agenda.
Mr. Herman was here because he was driving it. In fairness, he chose not to be here, so when Ms. King presented that we should wait for the new council, I didn't think it was all that unreasonable.
Gentlemen, let's be positive.
That's my
No,
fault.
I agree.
Well, you're right.
You made a
Come
really
up.
good point, Rich, that regardless of what went on before, here's where we're at.
Right.
Let's go from here,
Let's
get
go
it done.
forward.
I
I
wish we
think
would have
that's
done it in
the best
December so we could have
attitude,
noticed we
yeah.
didn't have any specs.
And who does the request for the bids?
The architect will prepare the technical specification.
Right.
Do we have to set a date for when we want them back by, or do you understand we want it for the next meeting?
I understand you want it very quickly. I will consult with Mr. Damiano to see the
Well, Rich said 2 weeks. He said 2 weeks.
Okay, just making sure.
I like him yesterday, Paul. I'm just kidding.
Give him some time, give him till Thursday.
No, I'm glad that we're moving forward.
We should.
We should, absolutely.
It's our responsibility.
The next item for discussion is the assessment demonstration program, our favorite discussion item. Maybe not, but did you have?
Mayor, I believe at the last meeting I provided the option, so we still are under a contract that had a 3-year initial term and 2 1-year extensions. The 3-year term has been completed. It's up to the council to determine if we wish to either exercise the option with the existing company or to terminate the agreement and go out to bid for new prices for the inspection services that are required under the assessment demonstration program.
I'm going to make a motion that we terminate and go out to bid for the last 2 years.
I'll second.
Can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Campion?
Yes?
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King? Yes. Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tomby?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you all. Again, I think we've discussed that quite a few times in the past, but just so you remember, when we did go out to bid the first time, we were only given one choice.
That's right.
So none of us are particularly happy that we only had one choice to begin with, so given this first opportunity to maybe get some additional choices, we're going to take it.
I would also say, as part of that, I would like to contact the representative who did the presentation here, who was adamant that there were additional companies, and we should find those companies and directly contact them to confirm that they've received the bid package and see if there's
Love to
interest.
hear what they have to say.
Indeed.
Yeah. And then the next item for discussion is paint the town pink. Are you going to do this presentation, Jeanine?
Sure. Just briefly, Paint the Town Paint, we're coming upon that again. The two hospitals, Meridian has joined with Hackensack. They are large, very large now. One of the options that we had last year, which turned out to be very detailed, was to have the banner put across the telephone poles, and it was permits were needed, insurance and all of that, which we elected not to do, and just put the sign on the banner on the school fence. Now that they have joined together, it seems someone in the corporation there is now in charge of approaching New Jersey Natural Gas and or the JCP&L. They will get the permits, they will make sure there is insurance. We are kind of out of the loop. We could just tell them which poles we want it on and they will take care of it. Or we can opt to do what we did last year, which was put it on the fence, whatever.
I'd like to see it up on the poles, I mean, personally.
There are the poles that are dedicated that the district put in many years ago, right in front of the corner of the fence of the school across the highway. There's 2 poles that are owned by the fire district, I guess now by the town, that have a cable across that were expressly put in for the banner for the clam bake.
Yeah, it's at the quarter
So
71.
that's something that
Cable's
Joe,
already there.
I don't know if Joe can get the information or contact somebody on the firehouse, could possibly forward an old application that just has the information to the state, because we need a DOT approval, but it was pure clerical.
And they will do it. We don't even have to do it.
Okay.
They will do it. They will take care of it. So if you want to put it on the poles, we can get it on the poles.
Yeah, unless anybody has any objections, let's put it on the pole.
Yeah.
And thanks for doing that last year
You're
and for
welcome.
picking it up again this year.
There's going to be more of that coming, but that's step one.
Okay. The next item on the discussion is the request of the Monmouth County Park Systems to present at a meeting seeking input to the 2017 County Open Space Plan. And we also, Jay, did you have, that was just, I mean, they had asked us to present, that they wanted to present either to our environmental committee or to the council, and my suggestion was that we would do it at a council meeting and invite the environmental committee.
Is there a preference as far as timeline, or?
I personally think that this should go before the environmental committee. I don't think that this is a subject that should come up here. And if it's going to be a special meeting, I think it should be advertised that the environmental committee is having this meeting for this purpose. I think we're getting ourselves into too many things. I don't know if anybody else up here agrees with me, but I just think that we don't need to be involved in this.
I'm in agreement with that. I think we have the environmental commission, they have the other boards, I think we should allow them to do their job.
Let them do their
I don't want to get in
work.
the habit of usurping them and having things come here, but.
That's what they're doing.
That's one thing.
Well, you
I
can
thought
come
you
to the
guys might
commission
want to
meeting.
sit
Unless you gotta do it here. I
You
don't
could-
want to force an environment commission, but I kind of feel like opportunities that come that are directed to a specific commission or board should go before them before it comes to us, but that's just me being picky on protocol.
The commission by statute does have some oversight on open space issues, but certainly the council is more than welcome to attend our meeting, and we can have a joint
I
meeting.
figured it was.
And it's still a Monday night,
I
so-
thought both should be invited either way. So
There you go.
That's fine, we'll do it at the environmental commission. But, so yeah, if you could get with Kat, Jay, to talk about when she might, which meetings she might like them to present at, then we'll go with that direction. And then I added one other discussion item, some update from the environmental commission. Is it going to be Lisa or?
No, Lisa's going to do it. You guys hear from me enough.
Hi, I'm Lisa Ball O'Brien, 916 Lake Crest Drive. So the Environmental Commission is doing some really cool things right now, so we just thought we'd let you all in on some really exciting things. The first thing, which isn't very big, but kind of cool, the osprey nest is, we found out at our last committee meeting that we are in line to get it moved to before the birds come back. So it's us and Monmouth Beach, right, Kat?
And this is the one on Warren Avenue on top of the telephone pole. And,
Correct.
yeah, they're worried about that isn't really the proper place for an osprey nest. The
So-
osprey's done great.
Yeah, so Nancy actually came across it, and it's just us and Monmouth Beach are the ones cited for March, I think. So, and apparently we don't do anything. JCP&L works with the, I think, the DEP on that.
Right, they built a new nest that's in an appropriate
Yeah, they can keep-
location
right.
and hopefully
And
the
then make
osprey
that
will fit.
pole, hospitable to the party. The second thing is Sandy Dennison and I, and way more Sandy than I, has been working on creating a farmer's market in town. And so she has been in communication and in agreement with the Allaire Community Farm out in Wall, and they're going to be our host farm. So they'll be here at every farmer's market, and they're going to be kind of the lead farm. And we have a lot of interest in other vendors as well. The plan is to do it Fridays and Saturdays starting in June. The place is to be determined, but we were thinking of the Grove just because of the shade, and there's some electrical out there. And so there's obviously some more discussion that needs to be done about that, but it's very exciting to have the farm in on it. In addition to produce, they also do honey and coffee and eggs. So they kind of do some cool things.
What would be your like a weekly thing, or?
Yes.
Okay.
In their experience, that's actually why we're doing Fridays and Saturdays. In their experience, they found that because in the summertime we have so much traffic down here that a lot of people are looking to buy their produce Friday for the weekend. And so they actually think Friday may actually end up being a busier day for us than Saturdays. And obviously we're in competition with the other farmers markets in the area, but it'll be nice to have one in town.
So and the other two reasons I think you mentioned that was a preferred location is parking and bathrooms are also,
Correct.
especially in the summertime, there's plenty of parking and the bathrooms in the police station are open.
And Lisa, when did you say this would start?
The end of June. The other thing is we've also created a green team in town, and so we just have put out requesting volunteers to just be put on a contact list, essentially, to do multiple projects throughout the year. We have the environmental club at the grammar school involved, several Girl Scout troops in town, and just several other individuals in town have expressed interest. So that's obviously, it's going to be whenever, if you hear of someone, direct them our way. And it's just, are you available? We're doing this project, or if you know of a project, you let us know and we try to figure out how to make that work. Obviously, that'll include Earth Day, but it'll be other projects throughout the year as well. And the last thing was...
This is all under Sustainable Jersey.
Oh, right. Sustainable Jersey. So we are in the process of, trying to get our status in Sustainable Jersey. There's like different bronze, silver, gold, and it's points for various items in town. And so Sandy and I, with the help of Janine, are working on getting that all done. And once we know kind of where our status is going to be for the year, we'll let you know.
Thank you very much.
And if you get certified in Sustainable Jersey, it opens up a whole avenue of grant funding that we would not normally have access to for different things.
That brings us to the end of our agenda discussion items, and that brings us to our mayor and council reports. I will start with Councilman Tompe. Do you have anything to report?
I do. Met last week with the Recreation Director, Sean Peter. The basketball program is in the process of finishing up. The townwide yard sale is scheduled for Saturday, May 20th. And then we're going to be having the annual Father's Day British Car Show in conjunction with the Positive Earth Drivers Club, as we do every year. Sunday, June 18th, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Joseph Robertson Allaire Road Park. And we have begun the planning for the summer camp.
Great, thanks, Joe. Good, thank you. And the townwide yard sale, we just sign up here in Borough Hall, or can you sign up on the website? No? We should do that. But you can sign up here, and how much does it cost?
I'm not sure, I don't know if they,
We did this-
it's always been
There's usually a
$5.
registration fee, right? Like a minimum one,
$5,
$5, yeah. Okay. And then the list shows up here for anybody who wants to get it, so that,
We put them out together,
Yeah.
and it's that morning, they're distributed from here and the community center.
you get a good turnout. There's a lot of people shopping around town that day. Way better than just trying to do one on your own.
Exactly.
Councilman American?
I met with Jay and Joe today and went over the water, sewer, utility revenue projections. And they all seem to be in order. They're easily read. Anyone can get a copy of that and see what we're spending. And we seem to be able to generate enough money to keep the town moving.
Good. Councilwoman King?
The only thing I want to mention is this recent snowstorm that we had, there was a huge concern in reference to cars still being on the street. And I know that Joe May, DPW superintendent, had contacted the chief and said that we really needed to get these cars off the road. So I do want to really enforce and be very emphatic about this, because it just doesn't make things real easy for our guys to go around and plow, and especially put the sand or whatever has to be put down on the street. So if you could spread the word, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks.
Councilman Schuler?
A couple things. One, I think, say Public Works did a great job during the storm cleaning the streets. And the other thing is due to the storm, we moved the bulk pickup last Thursday on the north end of town for this Thursday. And we put out on the reverse 9/11 if you were signed up for it. So bulk pickup will be this Thursday on the north end of town.
Thanks, I know a lot of people calling in and asking about that. Yeah.
They, people should sign up for this reverse 911. They get the information.
They would have known to remove their cars from the street, and then the trash day was moved to this week.
Right on the front page of springlakehts.com, Swift Reach. Click it and put your info in.
That's it. Councilman Camping?
I have nothing under committee reports, but I'm curious for Joe and Jay. I've been talking about this for, been up here 2 years, 2 months now, so roughly 2 years. Where are we with the energy audit application? We're just waiting for the state?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Dimmer?
We'll be meeting this week to start reviewing the budget for 2017. We'll be meeting on Friday with staff and our consultant to go over the budget from last year, see where we stand, and quite frankly, we stand pretty good. There's a nice surplus from last year's budget. Thank you, Councilman.
It's allocated to stuff this year.
We'll see.
Great.
But the town's in very good shape, thank God. And you know, it's one of the things that is allowing us to move forward with a lot of good projects and a lot of good capital projects without having to go out and borrow money, which is always a good thing. But again, we'll be back to report further. But it looks promising.
That's all, I mean, that's all I have, except, yeah, thank you. I think the Public Works did a great job clearing the streets. And got it done before everything iced up, which was really key. Because that evening, it got really cold, really fast, and they got it off the streets and dried up before there was a problem. All right, that brings us to our reports, notices, and correspondences. We have the water sewer utility revenue projection, as Councilman American mentioned. We have the police department report for January of 2017. We have a letter that Kat Crippen referenced from Anthony Garofalo dated January 20th, 2017 in regards to a permit for the property at 496 Prospect Avenue in Spring Lake, New Jersey, which is right across the tracks. A letter from Assemblyman David Ribble requesting to speak at a council meeting, so we need to schedule that. Did he give any proposed dates, or we just basically saying?
His letter's included in the packet. It looks like he's, I think he used the word at your discretion.
Okay. So while we're on the subject, does anybody have a problem with having him either one of the next two meetings?
No.
We're trying to arrange to get
It's 2
the
minutes.
gentleman to come out about the mass notification system for next meeting, so
How about
maybe
the
push it after.
2 meetings? Okay, ask him if he come in 2 meetings,
First meeting in March.
and we'll have him come speak.
Not gonna be here much.
A letter from Cablevision certifying the franchise fees and payment of the franchise fees for 2016. There was a Bradley Beach resolution supporting the filing of a complaint that the Criminal Justice Reform Act constitutes an unfunded state mandate. A Manasquan resolution supporting the filing of a complaint that the Criminal Justice Reform Act constitutes an unfunded state mandate. A letter from Monmouth County Mosquito Control Division requesting a resolution authorizing the division to conduct aerial surveillance. And we typically do that every year when they need to do that. And a thank you letter from Dennis Owens from 1217 Wall Road. We have no ordinance introductions at this time, which brings us to our resolutions. The first resolution is Resolution R 2017-43, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Put the ones with the numbers on it somewhere. So 43, here it is, which is authorizing the transfer of 2016 municipal budget reserves.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Merrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler? Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The next resolution is resolution number R 2017-44, a resolution of the Borough Council approving use of the community center for the Wickham Manor Association and the Girl Scout Troop 502.
Motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Merrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The next is a resolution of the Borough Council, it's R 2017-45, a resolution of the Borough Council approving a request for use of the Ocean Road Bicentennial Softball Field by the Girls Softball Clinic on Saturday, March 11th.
Yeah,
Motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Merrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The next is Resolution R 2017-46, a resolution of the Borough Council authorizing submission of grant applications with the New Jersey Department of Transportation for roadway improvements to Wall Road and Parkview Terrace.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Roll call. Get it
Jump
done.
in there.
Everybody thinking Wall Road needs a little payment?
Mr. Campion?
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Diver?
Without a doubt.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Merrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The next is Resolution R 2017-47, a resolution of the Borough Council approving payment of the itemized claims as set forth on the February 10th, 2017 bill list.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Merrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Abstain.
Motion passes.
The next is Resolution number 2017-48, a resolution of the Borough Council confirming the appointment of Kathleen Marmoma as a part-time office assistant. So this
I'll
is
make
a
that
new
motion.
employee,
Second.
and $14 per hour is her starting wage, just so you know.
And sorry, who was the first?
Sorry.
Robert.
Okay.
And then they.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Merrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And next is Resolution number R 2017-49, a resolution of the Borough Council confirming the appointment of Anthony Spinoza as a public works laborer, moving from a part-time position to a full-time position.
I'll make that motion.
Employee.
Second.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Merrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Motion
Congratulations, Anthony. Anyway, and then that brings us to the end of our resolutions, but to our second public comment section. This public comment section can be on any item on the agenda, or otherwise, if you have something you would like to comment on, please approach the chair, state your name and address, and say what you want to say.
Catherine Hahn, 7,000. Our concern with this whole community project was that the federal money is hub money, which it no longer is our community center. You have to open that to the public, to everyone. That was Nancy Haydock's concern way back when, and it's all of our concern. And I really don't think it's fair. We do need an upgrade. We needed it 20 years ago, that it's, Spring Lake Heights has never, ever, when we have something done, nothing is ever followed through. Like the floors need to be done 20 years ago, never done. The kitchen needs to be replaced 15 years ago, never done. So then they wait for it to get so bad that it's in such disarray, it's a lot of money to repair it. And I really don't think it's fair that we all stand here and don't allow the residents of the town to have a say in this. And I truly feel in our hearts that to take this federal money, which is only $150,000, which is not a lot of money, to not have control anymore. That it's our community center. We don't own that much anymore in town. The little post office that was up on 71, that was sold. That was a piece of our history. This is a piece of our history. This was a one-room schoolhouse years ago. I would hate it to be renovated. You want to build a facility for senior citizens building, you've got property right out here. You have property everywhere in town, somewhere else to put it. But to really take the charm out of that Ocean Road Community Center is a sin to me. And it really takes away our town. It's like we have a town with no name anymore. We don't want to modernize it. Yes, we do need a generator. We need a new roof. We need a new floor. The floor needs to be a wooden floor. That's what was in there. You know, and I just think in my heart that, you know, you're just taking the charm out of everything. You know, everything is done, you know, we've been over this. And what I want to know is how can we have plans drawn up with an architect? Who paid for that money? Who approved for that money every time he did these, when it wasn't even approved yet? Who authorized that? Thousands of dollars to an architect already when it wasn't even approved. Or you don't even allow the
understand what the
residents.
cost is when we don't hire an architect to actually put together a plan for us. I mean,
Okay.
and that being said, I would like to disagree that I think the town has been given a lot of opportunity to actually have their say in it. And as far as the federal money goes, I think we've addressed that concern by saying, look, it's $150,000 in my mind is a lot of money, especially for a project that it's going to cover potentially half of the cost. 50% of the cost of the project is a lot of money in my mind. And that for we lose very, very little control. The concessions that we have to make is basically during the week, we have to let it be used the same way that it's currently being used. I don't find that to be a concession. I find that to be a perfectly reasonable request.
Well, I would
So,
only wish that you would keep it in the charm that it is.
well, I think that's a perfectly reasonable
that was-
request. Absolutely. I mean, and I think we're in agreement that it's the floors, the generator, the bathrooms, and the kitchen are the order of importance for things, and you know the details of how that's going to come about. As Rich actually pointed out, you know, maybe we're not the best people to make the decisions on the look and feel of that place, right? But we are certainly the ones that are trying to make the decision on how to spend that money.
And our concern was, if you do the conference rooms, which I don't think is necessary, but that's my opinion, that the property next door is for sale, you know, to put a parking lot in there. Why should cars be up and down Ocean Road or on 9th Avenue there, you know, parked? That's a need that we need.
So you would not spend $150,000 to renovate this building, but you'd spend $400,000 to buy a house to add 8 parking spaces.
Well, no,
That's
that's
what we're
not
not-
the case. Well, whatever it is. I'm not even saying that. I'm just using that as an example. I mean, the renovations, Rich, need to be done years ago. Really. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing as a resident of over 40 years here. That's like that. But it was the way it is. They don't do it.
But we're gonna do it now.
You know, and, but that's all they asked for, the plumbing to still be there. And, you know, I'm a little confused
think we
with the
can manage
bathrooms with the, when we did put them in, they were, you know, Arthur Herner did that, he said it was up to code, so that was then.
And the code has changed, so I mean,
Okay.
and
code
But
judge.
that's all I was concerned about with the federal money,
Yeah.
that we wouldn't lose control. Now, you're saying you won't.
I really
And
think
that's
that
okay, if you really think.
we've looked into this and asked that question a lot of different ways, and the answer that I get back is that basically during regular operating hours, which is the 9 to 5 that is open during the week, that we have to allow, people from out of town to use it, and we
If
run
they
classes
request
in that, if they request it, but currently, the way that it's currently used, we run classes in there that have people from out of town, so we're already doing that.
There
Like, if
was-
they request, can I use it at the end of this class? We're like, of course you can, you're in the class.
I can't find it in
My mom is
front
one
of
of the
me.
people from out of town that comes to the class.
There was a discussion in here in
I mean,
And
August.
that's okay. It's almost like if somebody wanted to party from like Jackson.
No, and we
that's
had
all.
discussed
They're
that
gonna
there are things that we can do to make it available during the weekends for events that it is residents first. It doesn't mean that somebody out of town that requested, like, we can make rules that say this is what you have to do if you're from out of town. And here's the cost from out of town. It can be different.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay, sure. Because
yes.
I mean, I like look after that like it's my own house. So it's
Not to
my
mention
house.
that there's, I
Yeah.
think there's even some question
And
there
you're right
if the
about-
weekend is even during regular operating hours, right? So we could probably even argue
I
that.
can't find it in here, but there was a section I read in the August meeting when I was back looking at the minutes on here, and there was a section where we had contacted somebody, and there was an email that came back, I don't remember who it was from, but it outlined that during the normal business hours that we establish, it must be available for use by the public. And the comment that I made at the time was, would we ever refuse anybody from Wall Township or Avon, or anybody who wanted, if they were paying the fee, the same criteria, cleaning up after, insurance for, paying the fee, would apply, so it really doesn't change the way we use it. It's not like the doors are open 24/7, anybody can walk in, that's not
No,
the situation.
That's not it.
Okay, Chris.
Well, while we're on the subject of the community center, a couple things that, one thing, I think we should have a mandatory cleaning fee.
Like a cleaning deposit.
Yeah.
You don't get back if it's not clean, yeah, I think that's
And
honest.
I think we need to stop waiving the fees. Some towns charge hourly rates and have higher fees on weekends, as well as different rates for resident and non-resident use, and rates for civic, nonprofit, and private associations. I mean, that's costing us money.
Yeah, I think it's a community resource more than a community moneymaker. If the Girl Scouts want to use it.
I'm not talking money maker,
I'm just saying,
I feel like if you're a taxpayer, like a condo association or a civic organization based in our borough, they should have access to it without a fee.
which is typically when we waive it. It's not.
I think we did look at this, and I don't think we waive it as much as we see, because we don't see the ordinary approvals that pay the fee, right? We only have to waive, so the only ones that come before us are the ones we have to waive, the regular ones are processed through normal channels. We don't even know when people are paying for it. So we don't vote for every approval, we only vote when we waive the fee, as we did tonight.
Well, maybe what it could be helpful is that next meeting, if you could prepare just how much we collected last year in fees from the community center, that would be awesome. I think that would give us
That
some,
costs us to maintain it.
right, that would give us some visibility into exactly how much the costs and revenues are. I think that's always good to see those numbers.
Scared Catholics, anxious and orange. You're tapping glasses.
We're done commenting, now your turn again.
Cat Crippen, 564 Atlantic Avenue. Two things. One, you had mentioned about reaching out to the gentleman who gave the presentation about the assessment development program. Mr. Stewart was actually removed from the board because it was determined he didn't live in Monmouth County.
Okay, don't call him.
But the list of approved assessment firms is online. It might be at the state tax office. I have the link to it, so. And I know that Manasquan uses a different firm. They were one of the few towns around here that went with somebody else, so you might want to reach out to them and find out who they're using down there.
And how happy we are with them.
Yeah, exactly, so you can get into that. The other thing, I'd actually written this down before Kathy spoke, but it kind of piggybacks on what she said, that one of the concerns when the discussion about the community house came up was that if you accept the federal funding, the community house has to be open to everybody, not just residents, and there was some debate about that. Now, to kind of piggyback on that, people didn't like that idea, but wanted the money. In the same vein, at the last meeting, it was mentioned that the Green Acres funding cycle is coming up soon, And there was a thought to take the existing plan for the playground renovation and submit that, which if it was successful means that the playground would then be open to anybody in the state to use. So my suggestion is, since the Green Acres funding cycle is coming up and the property right next to the community house is for sale, wouldn't it make more sense to go into Green Acres to say, let's buy the lot, because that's more to their liking, is buying open space, not to renovate an existing facility. But you could put in the application, we want to buy the lot, put in a new playground there, and then the land where the existing playground is can be redone to expand the parking. Maybe you want to keep picnic benches or something in the back, and then that way you've just expanded that whole compound. That would also move the playground to an internal lot where, because right now it's on the corner, so you got traffic on two sides, and that's a busier corner because people use that as a cut through so that they avoid the light on 71 and Ocean Road. So if you were to do something like that, you could go for Green Acres money, you could go for Monmouth County open space, very similar structure to what we did with Fletcher. You go for those three fundings, so say you got $200,000 from Green Acres and you got $100,000 from the county, it would only cost us $100,000 from the open space one.
In Green Acres funding, you can buy a developed lot and turn it into
Yeah.
an open lot?
Well, that's what we did with
Okay.
Fletcher.
Yeah.
That's in essence what we did with Fletcher. There was a house,
Yeah.
they just asked you to tear it down, which that's the condition of that house that's on there now. So that might actually
Just got to
be,
cut the electric wires.
yeah, that might actually be a better option for everybody because you'd expand your parking. You would have land if you wanted to expand in the future, the community center, and you would have a playground that now doesn't front on one side on a busy street, it's only the front part. So, just throwing it out there since the Environmental Commission is supposed to advise on open space, so, it seems like it might be something that's workable if you want to pursue it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
John Tangent, 564 Atlantic. I just actually have a question about the problem of the people parking on the streets when it's snowing. How many summonses were issued to cars that were parked on the streets?
I have no idea.
Did they issue?
Do you have any idea?
I gave a report last time I was in the meeting, and that was for the first snow event. And I believe there was a second snow event that I did not participate in, so I don't have any, I don't have any knowledge off the top of my head.
We
I
can
know
get
the
you
first
that
time there was-
information.
No, I talked to Chief Dave, he said there was 9 issued. I said, did you tell anybody? He said, no.
Okay. So they, okay. So my point was that if by now everybody in town should know that you're not supposed to.
I think
park
1
on
or
the
2
street.
toes would really spread
Yeah.
around, they shouldn't park
And
there.
enforcing it by, at least by ticket would be good.
Yeah, I know we summoned during the first.
If you're not going to enforce it, then nobody's going to pay.
Yeah.
The other question I would have is,
I think a tow truck might have more.
That might.
do you have the ability to track repeat offenders?
Sure. So, the suggestion that we're not enforcing it, I don't think is accurate. On the shifts that I particularly work, which are all the midnight shifts, seemingly for the snow events, we do enforce them. And they are done with summonses, and they are all kept track with our onboard computer system. So to track a repeat offender is a very simple process, simply by entering the registration in the computer. It'll come up with a history, including prior warnings or summonses or tows. So it's definitely within the ability that we have to do. And it's been, in my 15 years, the sort of unwritten rule that the first snowstorm, people get warnings. The second snowstorm, people get summonses. And by the third time, that's when we start to really strictly enforce the towing aspect of the ordinance. But again, in my time here, 15 years, with 100% enforcement or 0 enforcement, people are still parking inappropriate. And I said this the last time, I think the best way to get this out is by reminding your next door neighbor that you're not supposed to park. And then if we need to remind them with a summons, we certainly do that, and that's how we certainly do it as well.
Just a reminder, they don't forget.
Yeah. Thank you.
talking about the rates.
If you just to get on record,
Oh,
I know
sorry.
she's got it, but.
You have it?
Yeah.
With the community center for a long time now, I would like to see the community center rentals and the expenses and all in some sort of separate line item or something, because we do bring money from it, and plus, we couldn't obviously finance a major reconstruction, but we can certainly continue to finance some of the improvements if we were allocating also. We definitely would use to have like a cleaning fee. We could certainly also raise, if there is a concern about out of town, we could certainly always increase the rental fee.
But I definitely think like a cleaning deposit is a good idea.
Do you want to work on that to see what you think the rate should be? You know, for the Girl Scouts, for
Girl Scouts
some of the
15.
condos? You know, for somebody who's not in town.
And we, you know, that any of the civic organizations and things don't pay to use it, but then, I mean, private individuals to rent it, so. Yeah, I'll look at cleaning fees and you know, see, I can go see if, you know, if any, I don't know if any, how many other community centers in the area rent out their facilities, but we can always get a little bit of an idea of what their fees are. Because ours are pretty reasonable, it's $100.
I always like the idea of a closeout inspection and a deposit, because
Well,
there are times you go there and you see staples and
right.
windows frames and
Yeah.
things like
Yeah,
that.
Well, we would love to have that, but we've never been able to work out a really good way of doing it. I mean, after the time that they moved the voting machines to the cellar.
That's an impressive task.
Yes.
Mayor, if I can, the process when we rent the community center is somebody books a date, we take a $100 check that we hold, and that check is dated for the date of the event, and that holds the date for them. And within 2 weeks prior to the event, they have to come back, provide homeowners insurance, sign some documentation, and give us another $100 check, which is the actual check that we deposit for the rental fee. The original check that we took, we hold on to, and it was supposed to be that after the event, the building would be inspected.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever.
If it didn't meet the standards, we would keep that deposit. But we don't have anybody to go in there after the events to do the
Yeah, we've never
inspections.
come up with a good.
We have to, I think there's two parts to it, right? One, we have to explicitly state that that's what that check is for, and two, we have to figure out a way to actually get the inspections done.
Correct.
Right, I mean,
When we
and that's on
accept
us.
that, we tell them to hold the date.
So we actually have the
and
process
yeah,
basically where we already have a cleaning deposit in place.
Right.
We just need,
someone to go inspect it.
we need the inspection, because otherwise we can't collect.
And
Do we actually have a
it's
rental
matter of
contract?
inspection on a Friday night, on a Saturday.
You get a rental
Sunday.
contract and a list of exactly how you're supposed to leave the place and what
Right.
how to clean it and where the garbage cans are and everything. You are provided with all the information that should allow you to put the
And
property
that has
back
our number on it.
in the way that you got it.
Right.
Yeah, we have a whole list, and even print.
So we'll work on
on
that.
display
I
in
mean,
the
that's for
building
us
about what they're
to
not
figure out
supposed to do.
how to
Right.
get somebody there to inspect
So the
it.
process is there, it's just that list.
Because yeah, most of our collected fees are during the weekend when we don't have somebody to
That's,
inspect.
that's the big issue, yeah, basically, all the problem on the weekend.
All right, thank you.
I just want to say, sorry, it's Paul Bryan. I just want to say something. I'm a customer of the community center. I've hosted many parties there, and I think if we do the renovations, I think people in town could tolerate an increase in the fee in town. And for out of town, we could even double whatever we're paying. I mean, I love hosting parties there. I think it's a great facility. I think it definitely needs to be improved. And having storage for chairs would be great for a nice party, because I've had very nice parties there where chairs have to be hidden in all sorts of funky places, so. But I certainly think that we could tolerate, and being a customer of it, you know, I can even doubling it without even batting an eye, so I'm happy.
Which still isn't very high.
I would agree. But
I would prefer doubling it over charging community organizations to use it, quite frankly. I think a private party that wants a space that big, $200 is a huge bargain. Yeah, so.
I just know in looking at other spaces, the various firehouses and those sorts of things where you can go in and do that space, they're often 600, 700. You know, I looked, you know, Avon, when Avon had the pavilion down the beachfront, you could use that space too, but it was like $600 or $700 too. So.
All right, thank you.
Comments, everyone. Mr. Drury, you commented about the building, which was the Junior Junction School at one time that you'd like to purchase. Unfortunately, that building went for just under $1 million and fixed up beautifully. But there is another building in town that is also quite beautiful. It's a building on the corner of Warren. You might want to go take a look at it. It's quite lovely. Thank you. Make a nice community center as well.
Former bank,
Terminals.
Okay. Seeing no further hands, oh, wait, seeing one further hand.
One half a hand. Eric Bennett, 9 Pearson Road. Mainly my came was about the community center, we hear about the addition, but we don't have numbers yet, we need to comment. Back in December, I asked about the parking lot lights, and Mr. Laney and I went over, looked at them, to see if they could be shifted downwards, because they are shining in at least half a dozen houses at night. I put them on a timer. Well, it's not a high crime rate area where the lights need to be on all night long, shining in people's houses. Can they be put on a timer so like after midnight, or after 11 o'clock, after their functions are done, the lights are shut off? Because there's really no need for them to be on all night, even if there are security. It's not a high crime area.
They are not on timers, they're dusk to dawn, photo cells.
But I'm sure they're.
But you're finding them on all night long?
They're on all night long, they're dusted ones, they're on all night long.
These are the parking lights.
In the parking lots, not the front door lights or the back door light where you want the door illuminated. The two main ports, halogen lights, they're trying to deal with windows. Deal with kids, small kids.
No, I think
Granted, we're not paying that much money.
I would advocate to have some lighting, but maybe some ground lighting, and to have the higher parking lights, maybe we can get those off.
No, I think whenever the functions are done, another half hour past that for people to clean up and leave, then they get shut down.
Don't we have hours where those lots and parks are closed at like midnight or something, midnight to 6 or something?
They do, but if you, right outside here, we have 2 in the front and I believe 3, maybe 4 in the back. They are unmetered service from JCP&L. They're not private,
Understood.
so they are unmetered services.
We don't have the luxury
They
of
don't
just
offer,
one timer.
they don't offer it in a timer system. If we want to go to time lights, then it would be a part of the building system.
But that's, the community center lights are the same light, that's unmetered.
They are unmetered parking lot security lighting.
So can you put a cover? Is there something we can put, or could we redirect it?
We have requested JCP&L to do that. JCP&L recently, at our request, revised the lights at this facility. We had a number of issues with the photocell issues, just the redirection over time with wind and whatever. So we have made that request to JCP&L regarding the community center lights as far as shielding, or I believe the one in particular, we've just requested that it be tilted down a little more.
All right, so we just
There's
keep
one
on
in
following that
particular.
up with JCP&L to make sure that they will hopefully work on that. All right.
The only other thing, I know the grant for the playground was shot down unfortunately, because we're looking for green acre money. My only concern is that we don't go for grants that are going to so severely restrict us, the town, in doing anything with that property. If we were to buy that 904 Ocean Road or do something with that park, and we restrict that, what we can and can't do. But that's what seems to be the case with the Fletcher Avenue property. We can't build on that because of the money that we took in for it. We can't put a community center on it. We can't put a sports complex on it. We can't build anything on it because of the grants that were obtained for it. If we go with that route with the playground,
It's an open space grant.
right? So we should restrict our hands in what we can. can't do it, we'll move forward with that.
Yeah, I mean, if we have a plan to try to get the property for a playground, then we would definitely
And-
pursue grants that
And
allow us to do
and
that.
here's the, and the playground is on a corner, but it's also fenced in, so the kids can't, that are in there aren't running off.
No, we
It's
hear
fenced
again
in.
and again that the playground is contained is a good idea, but there might, yeah, if we did obtain another piece of property, there might be another location that it could still be fenced in, but not right on the road.
And you just have to keep in mind that people are still parking there, they may not want to be looking at a parking lot right on the corner, so keep all these little things in
Yeah,
the back of your mind.
thank you. Seeing no further hands.
Motion closed?
Second. Motion to close the voice of the public.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mr. Dipper?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Motion is closed.
That brings us to the end of our meeting. Can I get a motion for adjournment?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Ran down.